It seems like AI is just everywhere these days, right?
Hmm.
Like in our phones, our cars,
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
even hospitals.
Yeah.
But with all this hype, it's easy to kind of forget to ask, like, the really important questions.
Yeah.
But what AI, means for our future. So I think that's what we're going to do today.
Wow.
Take a deep dive into some specific areas where AI is kind of making waves and maybe sparking some debate. We've got articles, some research,
Oh, cool.
even news stories about AI artwork
What?
that won an actual art competition.
Really? That's wild. It really is fascinating how AI is just like rapidly evolving, from
Yeah.
this niche technology to something that like touches almost every aspect of our lives. And I think the areas you've highlighted just really show how broad its impact is and the like complex questions it raises.
Yeah, definitely. Let's start with the EU
Okay.
and their move to regulate AI. From what I've read, it seems like they're really trying to be ahead of the curve,
Mm.
but some experts worry that it'll stifle innovation. What do you think about that?
Well, the EU's proposed AI Act is it's certainly a landmark piece of legislation. And what's interesting here is their risk-based approach, right? So instead of trying to regulate like all AI in the same way, they're categorizing systems based on their potential impact. So AI systems used in really important areas like healthcare or law enforcement,
Right.
even financial systems would face like much stricter rules than, let's say, a spam filter.
Okay, so help me understand this a bit better.
Yeah.
What exactly would these stricter rules look like? And how would they actually work to mitigate the risk?
Well, one of the key things for these high-risk systems would be transparency. Companies would have to be able to explain how their algorithms work, what data was used to train them, and how potential biases are being addressed. Think of it like a nutritional label for AI, right? It gives users more insight into what's like under the hood.
Makes sense. It would be pretty unsettling to be denied a loan or a job
Yeah.
based on some algorithm that, you don't understand. But I can also see the argument that too much regulation could, slow down progress. What are the potential downsides?
Yeah, I mean, that's a valid concern and one that's like fiercely debated right now.
Right.
So some critics argue that these regulations could just create a bureaucratic nightmare for companies,
Yeah.
especially startups, right? Making it harder to develop and deploy AI solutions. They worry that, the EU is getting ahead of itself, trying to regulate a technology that's, still rapidly evolving.
So it's like a balancing act then
Yeah.
between like promoting innovation and then protecting people
Hmm.
from potential harm. Do you think it's possible to do both? Or will we always kind of have to sacrifice one for the other?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I think the EU's approach, at least in theory, attempts to do both by focusing on the high-risk applications and emphasizing, transparency and accountability. They're trying to create a framework that allows AI to grow, but, minimizes the potential downsides. Whether they've, like, struck the right balance, well, I guess we'll have to wait and see.
It'll definitely be interesting to see how this plays out. But shifting gears a bit,
Yeah.
let's talk about AI in healthcare. One of the sources you sent me described this algorithm that's used in U.S. hospitals that was found to be racially biased.
Yeah.
That's a pretty unsettling thought, especially when we're talking about something as important as healthcare.
It is a stark reminder that AI systems, even those designed with good intentions, can inherit and even amplify the biases in the data they're trained on. In this case, this algorithm was designed to predict, which patients would benefit from, like additional care management. But it ended up disadvantaging Black patients.
How could that even happen? I mean, was somebody intentionally trying to, like, program racism into this algorithm?
No, not necessarily. The problem often lies in the data itself. If the historical data used to train it reflects inequalities in healthcare access or treatment, the AI system can learn to perpetuate those biases, even if it's not explicitly programmed to do so. In this case, the algorithm was using healthcare costs as a proxy for medical need, which is, inherently flawed.
Okay, so if the problem's in the data, how do we fix it? I mean, do we need to, like, scrap these algorithms altogether? Or is there a way to make them more equitable?
I think scrapping them entirely would be throwing the baby out with the bathwater, right?
Yeah.
AI has the potential to revolutionize healthcare, but we need to be incredibly thoughtful about how we design and deploy these systems. One crucial step is ensuring that the data used to train these algorithms is, representative and unbiased. This requires auditing the data for potential biases, and then developing techniques to mitigate them.
So algorithmic audits are a key part of the solution then.
Yes.
Can you explain a bit more about, like, what these audits involve? And who should be responsible for doing them?
Sure. So algorithmic audits involve systematically examining an AI system's code, the data, and the outputs to identify and assess potential biases or unintended consequences. It's essentially a way to hold these systems accountable,
Right.
and ensure that they're operating, fairly and ethically. Ideally, these audits should be conducted by independent third-party organizations with expertise in both AI and the specific domain where the algorithm is being used.
That makes sense. You wouldn't want the company that created the algorithm to also be the one auditing it, right?
Yeah.
There's just way too much potential for conflict of interest there.
Exactly. Having that independent oversight is crucial to ensuring, objectivity and public trust in these audits.
Hmm.
And it's not just about identifying existing biases, it's about developing strategies to correct them and prevent future biases from creeping in.
So it's an ongoing process,
Yeah.
not just a one-time fix. Well, this is definitely giving me a lot to think about. Before we get too deep into the weeds here, I want to make sure we have time to talk about the last topic for today, AI art. This story about an AI artwork that won an art competition completely blew my mind. It's like something out of a science fiction movie.
It certainly captured the public's imagination, didn't it? It raises some pretty fundamental questions about, the nature of art and creativity in the age of AI.
If a machine can create something that's considered art, then what does that mean for human artists? Are we all just going to be replaced by robots with paintbrushes?
Well, that's a question that's prompting a lot of soul searching in the art world right now.
Yeah.
Some artists see AI as a threat, a force that could devalue human skill and creativity. Others embrace it as a powerful new tool, a way to expand their artistic horizons and explore, uncharted territories.
I can definitely see both sides. On one hand, if anyone can generate art with a few clicks, I mean, will that dilute the value of, human created art? On the other hand, imagine what's possible if artists could harness AI to augment their own creative vision.
That's the exciting part. AI can handle the technical heavy lifting,
Yeah.
generating complex patterns, textures, and compositions. This frees up the artist to focus on the conceptual aspects, the emotional depth, the story they want to tell.
So instead of replacing artists, AI could actually empower them to push creative boundaries even further. I love that.
Yeah.
But let's get practical for a minute.
Okay.
How would an artist actually collaborate with AI? What would that process even look like?
It could take many forms. Imagine an artist, feeding their sketches or ideas into an AI system, which then generates variations or expands on those concepts. Or maybe they use AI to manipulate images or sounds in ways that wouldn't be possible by hand.
It's like having a super talented assistant who can instantly translate your wildest ideas into a visual or auditory form. It's really incredible. But we can't forget the ethical considerations we were talking about before.
Mm-hmm.
If AI is creating art, then who owns the copyright? The artist, the programmer, the AI itself.
That's the million-dollar question, and one that legal experts are really grappling with right now.
Yeah.
Our current copyright laws are based on, human authorship, so they don't quite fit this new paradigm of AI-generated art.
Seems like we need a whole new legal framework then
Yeah.
to address the unique challenges that AI poses, not just in art, but in all aspects of society. And speaking of frameworks, let's go back to the EU's AI Act. You mentioned that the Act categorizes AI systems based on risk levels. Can you elaborate on that a little?
Oh, absolutely. So the EU has identified certain AI applications as high risk. This includes systems that are used in critical infrastructure, like transportation and energy, as well as areas that could have a big impact on society, like law enforcement, border control, and judicial systems.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, those are areas where the stakes are really high and mistakes could have serious consequences. So what kind of safeguards does the AI Act propose for those high-risk systems?
Well, one crucial aspect is human oversight. The Act really emphasizes that humans should always be, in the loop, especially when it comes to making decisions that could impact someone's fundamental rights or safety.
So even if an AI system is analyzing data and making recommendations, there needs to be a human to review those recommendations and make sure that they're, appropriate and ethical.
Precisely. Think of it like an autopilot on an airplane.
Right.
The autopilot can handle a lot of the flying, but the pilot is always there to, to monitor the systems and take control if needed. The same principle applies to high-risk AI systems.
That's reassuring. It seems like the EU is really trying to to strike a balance between fostering innovation and protecting citizens from potential harm. But do you think these regulations will actually be effective? How will they even be enforced?
Yeah.
Especially in a globalized world where AI development is, like, happening everywhere.
Yeah, that's a valid question, and one that even people who support the act acknowledge as a challenge. Enforcement will be crucial, and it will require, collaboration among governments and regulatory bodies. And the tech industry itself, the EU hopes that by setting a high standard, they can influence, global norms and encourage other countries to adopt similar regulations.
It's kind of like setting a precedent then,
Exactly.
hoping that others will follow suit.
Yeah.
But shifting gears back to AI and healthcare, I'm still thinking about this idea of algorithmic bias.
Yeah.
It's kind of scary to think that a seemingly neutral algorithm could actually make, existing inequalities worse.
It's a serious concern, but it's important to remember that algorithmic bias is often a reflection of societal biases that already exist. AI systems are trained on data that we as humans generate. So if that data reflects our own prejudices and blind spots, then the algorithms will inherit those flaws.
So the solution isn't to just like abandon AI in healthcare, but to address those underlying societal biases and make sure that the data used to train these algorithms is as diverse and represented as possible.
Exactly. It's about being mindful of the data we collect, the assumptions we make, and the potential consequences of our choices. And it's about involving diverse perspectives in the development and deployment of AI systems to mitigate bias and ensure that these technologies benefit everyone, not just a select few.
That's a really important point. AI has so much potential to do good in the world, but it's up to us to make sure it's developed and used responsibly.
Absolutely. And that responsibility doesn't just lie with the, tech companies or policymakers. It's on all of us to stay informed and ask critical questions and, demand better from the AI systems that are increasingly shaping our lives.
They'll be active participants.
Yes.
Not just passive consumers in this AI-powered future that's unfolding before our eyes.
Exactly. Welcome back to our deep dive into AI. Before the break, we were talking about AI-generated art and how it's changing our definition of creativity.
Yeah, it's wild, right? I mean, we've always thought of art as like a human thing. But now we've got machines making art that's not just pretty to look at, but like actually makes you think.
Yeah.
So where does that leave human artists?
It's a big question for the art world right now.
Yeah.
Some artists see AI as like a threat, like it'll make human art less valuable. But others see it as like this amazing new tool, a way to explore new ideas and push boundaries.
I can see both sides. Like if anyone can make art with a few clicks, will that, devalue human art? But then again, imagine what artists could do if they could use AI to like help them create.
Right. That's what's so exciting about it. AI can do all the technical stuff, like making complex patterns and textures.
Yeah.
So artists can focus on the bigger picture, the emotions, the story they want to tell.
So instead of replacing artists, AI could actually help them be even more creative.
Exactly.
I love that. But okay, let's get practical for a second.
Okay.
How would an artist actually work with AI? What would that look like?
Well, there are lots of possibilities. Imagine an artist gives their sketches to an AI, and the AI creates variations or like builds on those ideas. Or maybe they use AI to change images or sounds in ways that they couldn't do by hand.
It's like having this like incredibly talented assistant who can take your ideas and make them real. It opens up so many possibilities.
Yeah.
But we can't forget about the ethical stuff we talked about before. If AI is making art, who owns it? The artist, the programmer. Does the AI own it?
That's the million-dollar question, and lawyers are still trying to figure it out. Our copyright laws are all about human creators, so they don't really work for AI art.
It's like we need new laws for this new kind of art.
Yeah, pretty much.
And actually, that brings us back to the EU's AI Act. You said it puts AI into different risk categories.
Right.
Can you tell me more about that?
Sure. So the EU says some AI is high risk. This includes systems used in important things like transportation and energy, and also in areas that affect people's lives, like law enforcement, border control, and the justice system.
Okay, yeah, those are areas where you really don't want any mistakes.
Exactly. The stakes are very high.
Yeah.
So for these high-risk AI systems, the AI Act says humans need to be involved, especially when it comes to making decisions that affect people's rights or safety.
So even if an AI is analyzing data and suggesting what to do, A human needs to check those suggestions to make sure they're okay.
Exactly. It's like an airplane's autopilot. The autopilot can fly the plane, but the pilot's always there to make sure everything's going right. It's the same with high-risk AI.
That makes me feel better. It seems like the EU is really trying to find that balance, between innovation and protecting people. But will these rules actually work? I mean, how can they even enforce them when AI is being developed all over the world?
It's a good question, and even the people who support the AI Act know it'll be tough. Enforcement is key, and it'll need governments, regulators, and the tech industry to work together. The EU hopes that by setting a good example, other countries will follow and make similar rules.
So they're leading the way, hoping others will catch up.
That's the idea.
Okay, but going back to healthcare AI,
Yeah,
I'm still stuck on this algorithmic bias thing.
I get it.
It's scary to think that something that seems neutral could actually make unfairness worse.
It is a serious issue. But it's important to remember that this bias often comes from bias that already exists in society. AI systems learn from the data we give them. So if that data reflects our own prejudices, then the AI will learn to be prejudiced too.
So we shouldn't just give up on AI in healthcare.
Right.
We need to fix the bias in our society and make sure the data we use to train AI is diverse and represents everyone.
Exactly. We have to be careful about the data we collect, the assumptions we make, and what might happen because of our choices. And we need to include diverse voices when we're developing and using AI so it's fair and benefits everyone, not just some people.
That's a really important point. AI has the potential to do so much good, but we have to make sure it's developed and used the right way.
Absolutely. And it's not just the responsibility of tech companies or the government. We all need to stay informed, ask tough questions, and, demand better from the AI that's becoming such a big part of our lives.
We need to be active participants, not just sitting back and letting AI happen to us.
Exactly.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've covered so much, about AI, both the good and the not so good. It's powerful stuff, and it feels like there's a lot riding on how we use it.
Yeah, it's like we're at a fork in the road with a bunch of paths leading into the future. The choices we make now, they're going to shape what that AI-powered future looks like. For us, for like everyone who comes after us.
Exactly. And that kind of brings me to what I'm most curious about. Where's all this going? What does the future of AI look like? Where could it make a real positive difference in the world?
Well, one area with a ton of potential is healthcare. We talked about the bias risks, but AI could also totally revolutionize how we diagnose diseases, discover drugs, and even personalize treatments. Imagine AI that can look at medical images and spot things way better than humans can.
Wow.
Find diseases super early, even design custom treatments based on your genes.
That sounds almost too good to be true, but it's amazing to think it could actually happen. And it's not just healthcare, right? Where else could AI change things for the better?
Well, climate change, that's arguably the biggest problem we face right now. AI could be a huge help in finding solutions. Imagine AI that can make our energy grids more efficient. Help us discover new clean energy sources. Maybe even help capture and store carbon emissions.
That would be incredible. It gives me hope that maybe we can use AI to actually solve these huge problems.
Yeah.
But I got to ask, what about the downsides? We talked about bias, but what about jobs? Are robots going to take over everything?
It's a real concern and one we need to, plan for. It's likely that some jobs will be automated, yeah. But history shows us that new technology also creates new jobs, new industries, stuff we can't even imagine yet.
Okay.
The key is education and retraining, making sure people have the skills they need to succeed in, an AI-powered world.
So instead of being scared of AI taking our jobs, we should see it as a chance to rethink work altogether. Maybe create jobs that are more meaningful, more fulfilling for everyone.
Exactly. Let AI do the boring, repetitive stuff. That frees us up to focus on, problem solving, critical thinking, those things that make us human that robots can't do.
So working together then.
Yeah.
Humans and AI to make things better for everybody.
Exactly. And it's not just about the technology, it's about the values we build into it, the choices we make about how we use it. We need to make sure AI reflects the best of us, our compassion, our creativity, our desire to make the world a better place.
Well said. So wrapping up this deep dive, I'm feeling cautiously optimistic. AI has huge potential, both good and challenging. It's on all of us to keep talking about it, asking the tough questions, working together to shape an AI-powered future that works for everyone.
I couldn't agree more. This isn't just a conversation for, the tech people or politicians. It's for all of us.
Mhm.
Because the future of AI, it's the future of humanity.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the world of AI. We hope you learned something new, saw things from a new perspective, maybe even feel a little inspired to get involved with this incredible technology and do some good with it.
And remember, the future isn't set in stone. It's a story we're all writing together. So let's make it a good one.
Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged.